All right. So do we have something? Or do you guys need more time?
I found the mean, but I didn't find like the deviation part. Like the
Uh-huh. Okay,
yeah.
so if you found the mean, that means that you know which one I want you to cross out right away, right?
Right. So cross out A.
Cross out A. Yes. A is definitely not the answer, okay? What about the rest of us? Do we still need more time or? You might want to use the chat, Alan, if you can't communicate with us. All right, give you guys a couple more minutes on this, okay? Okay, so did we get something?
I got something.
Yeah. Okay, so Remington already.
But I don't know if it's right.
What did you get?
It's not on any of the answers, so it's not right. I got 473 points, or sorry, 463.48. Oh, it is on the answer. 84.
So which one? Which one is it?
I got B.
B. Okay.
I got B.
Yeah. What about the guys? What you guys get? So
B.
yeah. So at least, like, for example, Remington, you already told us that the mean ended up being 486.2. So 486.2, 486.2, 486.2, and so on. Okay. Now I can see, like, when you have a lot of decimals and things like that, that can make it a little bit more difficult because it gives, like, it just raises the chances of you getting something wrong. Okay, but in the end, once we subtract them all, we add them together, we end up having 2,319 with 20. We're gonna divide that by 5, and yes, the answer I came up with was 463.84. Okay, now remember how last time I had told you guys, like, this is the average, right? So you would have wanted to maybe cross out like all the other ones that were similar. Okay, but obviously, like I had said, it's not always the case, but most likely than not, right? There's this one is a little bit different because yes, the answer is B, and what that tells us is that we really, like, this data isn't maybe like representative of all of Texas. So like if we wanted to say what is the average elevation of Texas, we can't really say because every area of Texas has different elevations, as you can see, right? El Paso has very high elevation since we're a very mountain kind of region. Same thing with you guys over there in Sierra Blanca, right? You guys are on a mountain. That's literally what the town's named after, right? So um, you guys are a very high elevation, but then if you go to like the big cities like Dallas, Houston, they're at a very low elevation, right? And so what that happens is that they're they're actually more prone to like floods and stuff like that. Whereas here in El Paso, not or here in El Paso or in Sierra Blanca, we don't really have that problem, right? Um, but anyways, yeah, we can't say that this is representative of the whole population. But let's just say um, we were talking about the elevation from like Hudspeth and El Paso County, right? maybe that could work out a little bit better. Maybe that would be a little closer to 0. So our mean absolute deviation might be a little bit better there. Okay. All right. So that's pretty good. All right, guys. Okay. So we're moving on now. So I'm gonna write a lot of these notes, or I'm gonna post a lot of these notes on Google Classroom. Okay. There's a lot of, I guess, written stuff on here, but let's see. So for example, guys, let's talk about interest, okay? So for those of us, have we ever heard the word interest before? And we're talking about like when we're talking about a loan or like an investment or something like that. What is interest?
It's a. I know it's some type of payment.
Okay, some type of payment. So let's start off like this. When
you pay like a certain, like a tiny amount of money back to the person you loaned money from.
okay, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the right idea. But let's just think about this. Let's say, well, I guess most people don't really have the money to go say, okay, I'm gonna go buy myself a car, right? Most people don't have in like $20,000 to go buy themselves a brand new car, right? So what do people have to do? Or maybe even like a house, right? A house is really expensive, can be like $100,000, $200,000. That's a lot of money for someone to have in their bank, right? Some people do, right? But not everyone. So what do these people have to do to buy that stuff?
They have to go get a loan from the bank.
Right, exactly. So they have to go to the bank. They have to get themselves a loan. Okay. So let's say I'm gonna buy myself a $20,000 car. Okay. So I would call that, well, from the bank's perspective, I would call that the principal. Okay, $20,000. Okay, and that's what the principal means is that that's the original amount that was borrowed or invested, depending on the way that you're looking at it. Okay, but since I'm looking at it in terms of the bank. Okay. But I'm not just gonna give you $20,000 and say, here you go, pay me back in 3 years, right? The bank has to make money. And if I give you $20,000 in 3 years, those $20,000 aren't really worth the same, right? Because of something called inflation, but we're not really gonna get into that. I have to make money on that. So the way that banks make money is by asking you to say, okay, you're gonna pay me back $20,000 plus interest, okay, and that's where that comes from, okay. So a bank will tell you, okay, let me give you 3 years, okay. So you have to pay this back in 3 years, and you have to pay me back interest, or not but you have to pay me back interest at a rate of 6%. Okay. So what that basically says is that the bank expects $20,000 plus whatever interest you get in 3 years at 6%. Okay, so we call this the rate or the annual percentage. Okay, so whenever you see a percentage like this, we're always talking about it on an annual basis. Okay, so if we were to calculate the simple interest here, the formula is interest is equal to principal times rate times time. Now, the percentage always has to be in decimal form. So what's 6% in decimal form?
0.06.
0.06. Okay. So to find the interest, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply our principal, 20,000, our rate of 0.06, and our time of 3 years. Okay. So multiplying all those together, you have 20,000 times 6.06 times 3. That is equal to 3,600. Okay. So basically after 3 years, we had to pay back the principal of 20,000 plus the interest, and the interest was 3,600. So what is the total amount that we had to pay back at the end of 3 years?
23,600.
Exactly. And so that is what the bank, that is how the banks make money. Okay. So they not only just loan money to people, right? They expect money back. Okay. So that's what the interest is, and that's how a lot of the banks make money. And I can tell you that banks make a lot of money. Okay. So okay. So let's say, let's look at it from a different perspective, okay? Now let's say I have $4,862 in a savings account. And the savings account is going to pay me 2.99%. So it works the same way. Like you can also put money into a savings account and you yourself get paid interest, okay? So that's kind of a good thing. That's kind of where investing comes in, okay? So we can look at it from the bank's perspective where they're loaning money, or from your perspective where you're investing money, okay? So let's say I wanted to know what I'm going to get after 5 years. So the amount borrowed or invested, that's the principal. The rate is 2.99%, and then the time in years. Okay. So what would be the 2.99% in decimal form?
.0299.
So 0.0299. Okay. So to find the interest that I earned, how do we do that?
You multiply 4,862 times the rate times the amount of time.
Exactly. So we're gonna multiply all three of those numbers together, and that should give us our interest, okay? So we're gonna multiply 4,862 times 0.0299 times 5. So what does that give us? Okay. Does anybody have that? It should be, let's see, I got $726 and 87 cents. Now, I rounded that because, you know, when we're talking about money, we're just basically, there's basically only 2 decimal points, right? So now, what if I wanted to know how much money I'm gonna have in total? So the amount of money I had originally was 4,862.
You'd subtract it.
I'm not subtract, right? Because we're talking, we want to know how much do we have in total, right? So we would actually add it together, right? We want to add the interest and the principal together. So 726 with 87 cents. So what we would want to do is add all of these together, or both of these numbers together, to know how much money I had in total. So this should be, let's see, yeah, 7, 8, 8, 8, 15. So in total, we have $5,588. Okay. Okay. Okay, so last example before we're done. Let's say I bought a car for $21,000. Okay. Let's say I borrowed the money for 5 years. And let's say that at the end of everything, I paid a total of $25,725. Okay. So the first question is, how much interest did I pay in total?
You have to add them together.
So I have the total amount that I paid, and I have the principal. So in this case, not add them together, but we would actually have to subtract them. Okay? So remember that the interest is how much money we paid back in total plus the principal, or, well, no, that's not the correct way. It was like the total amount is the principal and the interest together. So if I know what the principal is, then I can just subtract it to get the interest. Okay? So what is the total interest I paid there?
$4,725.
Right. So that is a total interest that I paid is 4,725. So that's the first question. Okay. But the second question, what is the rate that I paid? Because if you notice, I didn't give you guys a percentage there. So what is the rate that I paid? Okay, so let's think about this. Okay. Remember that our formula is I equals P R T. Okay. So if we set this up, we know what our interest is, right? We know that we paid a total of 4,725. We know that our principal is 21,000, and we know that the time is 5. So what we're missing is R. All right, but yeah, that's fine, Alan. Don't worry too much about it. All right, but anyways, okay, so this is the information that we know. Okay, we already know that our interest is 4,725. We know that our principal was 21,000, and we know that our time is 5. So the only thing that we're missing is the rate. Okay. So let's start off by multiplying 21,000 times 5. So that would give us a total of 105,000. Okay. But we're still missing that R. So how would we figure out what our R is? This becomes a one-step equation. Okay. So how would we cancel out 105,000 to get our rate? Does anyone have an idea?
Doesn't it have to do with something? You divide something.
Right. So to cancel out that R, because if you notice, we have 105,000, and if we had our rate, we would multiply that, right? But since we don't, what we want to do is we want to do the opposite of that. So we're not going to multiply, but we're going to divide both sides by 105,000. Okay. So that cancels out right there. So then our R is equal to whatever 4,725 divided by 105,000, which ends up being 0.045. Okay. And remember that our rate is expressed as a percentage. So what would 0.045 be as a percentage?
4.5%.
Right, 4.5%. Hi guys. So let's see.